And
everybody? We're back, dude. Back again. Warp Charge Gaming live on Thursday, 9 o'clock. Like every Thursday. It's episode 107. And this episode's real cool because we're back at Battlegrounds, dude. At least I am over here. I'm up in the store.
GG.
It's all quiet and stuff, like usually right about now. If you go to some episodes back, there was all this background chatter, people having a good time, and that's about to happen again, Chris. I'm really excited about that. But I'm jumping right into wanting to talk about that just because it's literally just happened, like up to the wire of the starting the episode here was plugging in the computers and getting the cameras, lights, camera, action kind of ready kind of thing, and it feels good. Let me tell you, to see that I'm about to actually make the 60 by 44 here momentarily, you know, and be featuring the new board size as we go into 9th. Hopefully 9th edition is just around the corner, Chris. I've heard maybe just even a couple weeks away. What do you think about that?
I mean, so I've seen an actual, not to take away from Battlegrounds, but I saw at an actual Warhammer store, they already have the shelves marked off where
Okay.
they're going to be stocking the rulebooks.
Okay, good. Yeah, we're gonna jump all over the place, and just to, like, for instance, the intro. If you've never seen the show before, episode 107, well, we do it every Thursday. We talk about tabletop wargaming. Hopefully, James can jump on. His internet's been a little froggy lately, so we may or may not see our good buddy and partner James. But Chris is a Tyranid extraordinaire, gene stealer himself. He literally is a gene stealer. And
I do take pants.
yep, that is just a skin suit you're seeing there right now.
Mm-hmm.
It's one of your better days, Chris. You're really hiding your tentacles and shit well today, dude.
Thank you.
Yeah, very good. Nice. Oh, I'll
The
go
weather
hold that.
called for it.
Yeah. And then I love all things chaos, and we throw some Space Wolves in there too. But we're talking about 40K. If you just stumbled upon this, you don't know what the hell we're talking about. We're talking about 40K, and it's getting ready to transition to a new edition. On this channel, we also talk about Age of Sigmar, Warcry, Kill Team, and I Love Infinity. And that's some exciting news, because literally in a week, Chris, I painted my first army for Infinity.
Dude, you should get some pics up of that soon, if not already, because I gotta be honest, you have like super impressed me. Like, you've gone from like 0 hobby fucks given to like all of the hobby in like a week.
I'm so proud of myself, dude.
I'm very impressed. Like, I mean that sincerely.
we will definitely, we'll show it in this episode here. I haven't shared online or anything. I'm getting ready to play my first game with it tomorrow. Mike's actually going to come to the studio here at Battlegrounds, and we're going to throw down. I think if we're playing Infinity, we're both a little rusty. I've never played the army. We're probably going to keep it off cam, but we do have a lot of Infinity bat reps that a lot of folks tuning in may not know that we have a secondary channel. Warp Charge Gaming features Infinity battle reports. Only like 100 subs on there, but we put like our top efforts into making some great Infinity content, and it's on that channel. You can see some past stuff on ours. But yeah, man, there's so much. So we got, we've been ranting for the last few weeks about all the changes with 9th edition. We do have more to talk about. Of course, everybody else gets to read that too. So I want to talk about something that's a little bit special for what's going on and paired with 9th edition, and why I'm excited that it's a couple weeks out is, one, Virginia is going to a phase 3 that pretty much lets us kind of do what we want. We're still going to be playing it safe here at Battlegrounds, mask required, and we're not going to kind of put anybody at risk by kind of forcing big events with large crowds. We're going to be real focused on social distancing. And out of the 15 6x4 tables here, they're going to probably be reduced in half with big spreads between each one kind of thing. So maybe 7 active tables. But what's exciting is that where you can come in and finally get some fucking games on and roll some dice, as long as you kind of take care of making sure everybody's safe or whatever, then we're going to also put in some competitive organized play, as well as a great primer and way to get introduced into 9th edition. We, of course, on this channel have been eating up every bit of it, and we're going to be experts on the subject when it comes to the 9th edition.
Man, I've been nose to the table on 9th edition. Like,
we're going to comb that rule book so hard, dude, and it's going to be fun to be able to help our friends of our community transition from 8th edition to 9th, both at the world at large as they tune in and watch bat reps and whatnot, and as well as this organized play event I'm going to come up with here. And what it is, Chris, is we're going to do I think I'm going to do something like, I'm writing up the details as we speak, but it's going to be about 5 months, I think, from now to December. And I'm going to follow the format I've been seeing from online with Tabletop Simulator, like the Tactical Tortoise setup that I've been mentioning. He has a global tournament where every time like an 8-man pod fires off, people pay $10 and it goes towards this grander, this prize pool for finals. And we're essentially going to do something similar where we're going to seek, we're going to have a league that is going to be meant to find 8 finalists to play into like a finals round. And what I'm going to do is set it up so that every time 8 people sign up to play, I'll have a league for them, but it's single elimination. So if you lose your first game, you're out.
Don't suck.
But you can sign up for as many leagues as you want. So first league fires off, cool. The second pod immediately will go up with pre-registration, and you can sign up for that. You can sign up for as many leagues as you have time to be able to commit to finishing a game in 10 days. Every round will be 10 days long. So every 8-man pod, if you get second place, you get your entry back. If you get first place, you get twice your entry. Okay? So I'm going to have all these 8-man pods. $15, I think, is what I'm going to do. And what's going to be fun is I'm going to create a public calendar, and players will be able to, put their general availability into this calendar so that they can sync up, and I can see it and participate with that of scheduling, so that I can film the games and give players like the Tabletop Simulator situation the opportunity to actually see the tournament transpire as they play in it. Getting to see their opponents' armies, how they play, and strategies. Things of that nature. So it's going to be a little bit different with that kind of observation available, and I think it'll be fun to be able to post it amongst the community and kind of jive everybody on as they have these ongoing battles. But at the end of it all, once we've had 8 unique winners, so if someone were to win the pods over and over again, they're basically just creating a larger pot, because we're going to only be giving a portion of the pot to the pod winners, and we're going to be giving the lion's share of it over to the general pot for the finals, right? Where that'll have its own payout. And
Big money.
So the more that people come in and beat and take away the exclusive winners, the more the pods will continue to grow, and the prize money will continue to rise, right? So it's still, I think it's a pretty fun system, and hopefully lots of pods fire off and people finish their games promptly. But I think what's important, of course, is that there's going to be moments where schedules can't align in a 10-day period. And I think one of the ways I'm going to police that is by having the public calendar. The motivation to put your information into it is going to be that the more availability that you show, that you have to play, to align your schedule with your opponent, that is what determines the deal breaker if the match can't fire. So like, let's say in the 10-day period, just a match didn't end up happening, the person that had the most availability will get the default win. And I think what I'll do is weekly have a day for each pod that'll be like the last day of the 10-day period or whatever it says. All right, no matter what, this is a scheduled time, and then you guys, if you want to pick a different time, go ahead, kind of thing. But basically, I got to kind of figure out those logistics to make that smooth, and I think I'm coming up with like a system, and it's all about being able to give a transparent and clear presentation or breakdown of it as I fire it off, right? So the goal is to have all those details printed and packed and videoed by the time we open up here Wednesday is what I'm hoping, and start getting people involved and getting these pods firing off, man. Sounds pretty cool. What do you think, Chris? Do you think that sounds neat?
I dig it, man. I think a lot of people are into the bigger pot, personally. Like it's almost like what you see, like in a lot of like poker leagues. Like like there'll be multiple tables, and it's all building to a final pot. But there is a table winner per se that gets consolidated deeper and deeper.
Yeah, and it's like essentially, if you win a pod, you essentially have like paid your entry into you got your entry back plus your entry into another pod, or The idea is that overall that we're playing games, we're getting to film games, the community is getting to, I'm getting to hang out with folks and help them and help us all get more acquainted with 9th edition, because the Lord knows playing on camera is a great way to learn. Because when you fuck up, people let you know, right?
Damn right they will.
You know, and in a positive way. Like, I've learned a lot of like, ooh, small detail, and you end up teaching that to other people as the internet teaches us. And it's a fun part of filming is getting to learn things. Sometimes it can be frustrating as when you know you're not wrong and you have to kind of explain it a few times. But
yeah, that's true too. But you know, like you gotta take the good with the bad.
Exactly, it's worth it. It's worth it. So that's my ingenious strategy to have safe social distancing until shit can blow over a little bit more. Lord knows things are just on the rise, kind of thing, really. But Battlegrounds needs support. I'm so glad to be able to get in here and start revving the engine and trying to bring revenue into the store, because it's a fucking gem in this world, this place, and I love it.
I definitely hope that you guys have as swift of a reopening as a lot of the stores in this area have had, because I got to tell you, like my neck of the woods, people don't seem to really give much of a crap.
Yeah, I think we're way safer than a lot of the surrounding stores, honestly.
I don't think you're wrong by any stretch of the imagination, but you know, like gamers are hungry for playing. Like I think that even just a soft reopening at Battlegrounds, like you guys should see some good numbers.
Well, it's too just that we want to see all our players, and even though it may be frustrating to not get to have as carefree of a style as maybe some other game stores, we're going to get to, because we play it safe, have players that normally wouldn't feel comfortable come out to come to our events. We want to see as many of our community members safely as we can, you know? So I'm feeling good about it. I'm pumped, and that's coming down just right away, dude. And that just all kind of formulated very quickly. So here we are in the fucking store, dude. Like the models are all here, and it's time to let's show the new army, dude. The combined shit, and then we'll talk about some 9th.
Sounds good.
Yeah, let me see if I can hunt it up here. We gotta. Right now, it's because James isn't here, dude. We got a low turnout on this Thursday night so far.
Everyone wants to see James, man. Him and his glorious locks.
Yeah, it's fucking crickets.
But
yeah. Oh, here we go. I got it. All right. So bringing it on cam. Bam. And then I think I can make it even. Nah, this will work. Yeah. There it is. What do you think of that, friends? I feel like I can do this better. Bam. Yeah, that's better.
So, to be clear to you guys, I don't know if you guys caught any discussion about this last week at all, but like, my first experience was watching George paint. He tried some of the Citadel paints and some dry brushing back in 7th edition, back when he was just a wee 40K lad. And he didn't get the results he wanted painting a Dark Angels Terminator. I have to tell you, the models that I'm seeing him put on screen in front of you guys, night and day. This to me looks like someone who's been painting for a very long time. And I mean, you can even see the board, like using the texture paints and whatnot. I mean, dude, you did phenomenal work.
Dude, I'm so pumped, man. And like, woo! A lot of it came, again, I've been realizing, because guys, I had a real reluctancy to go to paint anything. And, you know, I'd be like, I do not do that. I'd almost be like, fuck you. You're not seeing me with a brush, to the point of comical, you know? And I just had no patience to hold glue to a model. And weirdly enough, quitting cigarettes actually gave me more patience, I believe, because I became addicted to things that took my mind off things, right?
It's a lie. He just wanted to hold something in his hand.
Yeah. So like, check it. I'm showing pictures of the work in progress of the magnets here. This came from the Crystal Fortress. That's what the those are our 3D printed movement trays, and that's a Crystal Fortress layer with their magnets you can get off their site. And I kind of set it up how I thought I'd like it to look, and then glued it down and put all that texture on there. But yeah, like I started, like I've never cooked, and I've started making sushi and shit. You guys see me joke about that stuff on the channel. And you know, this was another one. I feel like I was kind of like in the kitchen kind of thing, where I just zone out, put in music, and just get lost in the process. And it's been a lot of fun. I'm kind of addicted to it now, you know. And here's the whole army. It's a whole army. And Infinity Land, dude, this is about 800 points of shit now growing. I just got a couple more models to finish off. And this is literally like having the entire codex almost worth of shit. And if you were in 40K terms, I would say it's equivalent to about 3,500 points now, if you were to consider it in 40K concept.
Like scale it.
Maybe no, because really it's pretty much 3 armies worth. It's like, so that would be 6,000 points. Yeah, because I mean 300 points is an army, and this is almost 1,000 points probably.
Very nice.
Yeah, but dude, they're so cool. I love these big monsters, and that's pretty much what I've gotten more of that I'm excited to. They're honestly some of the cooler guys. I'll pull up another image of what they look like. I don't have them. I'm going to pull up already painted models. Xenothrone, Infinity. There's these really big kind of, they're gimmicky in the fact that they can make a team, like a link team, of these big fucking tag-like guys. So it's like a Harris team of tags. Infinity.
I got you.
Yeah, Xenodron. And they're just super cool looking. Oh man, are you looking at the, are being able to see the screen, Chris?
I'm seeing it, but I've got a little bit of a lag on delay.
I'm not showing it yet. I just wondered. I'm about to pull it up. Open image. Yeah, here we go. All right, to the audience. Yeah, this model slaps. So it's a pair of guys, and I just love these big monsters.
Oh, they're cool.
Yeah, they're super sick. And they're some of my favorite ones that I have right now for the army painted up. And whenever they're really going to kind of fill out that centerpiece feel of the big baddies, you know. It's like getting all the demon princes you needed and shit.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, man. But yeah, good times, fun times. I'm loving it. I'm excited to build and paint the rest of these guys. Let's see if I can get back into our regular program here. There we go. Excellent. Damn, sad we missed old James. I wonder if he's been... Let's talk about ninth and some of the things that would make James sad, or me, about combat. I saw Tyranids. I didn't get to read the Tyranid breakdown, and it seemed like there was a lot of chatter of being like, "Oh my, Tyranids are cool." Oh. What's going on there, Chris?
I mean, so just a lot of the general changes to 9th edition, I think, speak well to Tyranids. I mean, they mentioned in the Tyranid article something that they've confirmed with the new strategic reserve rules. That was the first we saw of them saying, oh, the Tyrannocyte, which is the Tyranid drop pod, doesn't cost command points to throw in reserve. They've confirmed
Terminators, everything with a rule that has deep strike, right?
Absolutely. They've confirmed that with the strategic reserves. Things like with teleportariums, all of that jazz will not cost any command points to throw in reserve.
I like
Additionally, thank you. And, being able to shoot in combat, I think that's a big deal, especially because a lot of Tyranid creatures, you can load them up with guns. I mean, the Carnifex has 2 sets of weapons you can generally load up. And even just like the upgrades to heads. The Tyranid article mentioned taking 2 sets of Devourers on a Carnifex, which is something you would see the 24-shot loadout. Mm-hmm. But instead of taking the head that is normally +1 ballistic skill, you can take the head that's a 2 damage weapon at -5 AP.
Ugh.
And yeah, exactly. So it's like, oh yeah, I can still shoot in combat. And guess what? I also have this -5 AP weapon. Oh, and I also have a tail weapon. They're getting a lot of flex. In the Tyranid article, they also mentioned something that they haven't touched on further. They've said there's going to be something called vertical engagement range, which they've said before, like, people are not going to be as frustrated with, like, Tyranid monsters or other monstrous creatures not being able to attack things on higher levels.
Right.
They haven't elaborated on that yet, so we don't know. I don't know what that means, if that's going to be like, hey, measure 3 inches off the top of the model, or, whatever it is. We know that there's going to be some kind of swinging at the 2nd level, or possibly even 3rd level, depending on the height of your model.
I wonder if it'll be height of the model, because, there's got to be, like, the whole standard of, like, the default pose, or something like that. Like, because the moment that you model outside of the standard, and also, are they going to go off wings? Are they going to go from, like, the shoulder of a model?
All fair points.
Kevin says a 1/2 inch from model.
half-inch from model. I don't know that I've seen that mentioned anywhere.
Yeah. One thing I thought was interesting is the whole coming from reserves and tactical reserves. They have the stair step thing was super cool, right? So like things that have deep strike capabilities already, they can go into reserves for free. But now for command points based on power level, we can take additional things that didn't have the ability to go in reserve into reserves now. And what is it?
Absolutely.
10 power level or more. It's a scale. Can it go to 3 CP even based on power level?
Yes, it can go. I actually just sent it in the chat. And it's actually your combined power ratings of units in strategic reserves.
Okay.
So it's not, not per unit. You pay the command points based off how many total you've thrown into reserves.
Oh. Ooh. Okay.
Because like a unit of Gene Stealers, like a 20-man unit of Gene Stealers, is 16 power level. So that's actually going to cost you 2 CP just a unit of Gene Stealers, and throwing almost anything else in reserve is going to cost you more.
Yeah, that's nuts. I got it on the screen here. That is wild and crazy. And then what's amazing was the cascading level of actual coming in from reserve. So even if you got deep strike, it seems like you have deep strike, right? Like, but otherwise, if you pay the command points for a non-standard reserve unit to go into reserve, then turn 1 they can only go 6 inches from the board edge outside the enemy deployment. Was that
turn 1? There are no strategic reserves on their chart.
Right. Oh, you got me. You hooked me up. Right. Exactly. Yeah.
Then battle round 2, you can be wholly within 6 of any battlefield edge, but not your opponent's battlefield edge. So you cannot be within 6 of your enemy's backfield of 6. Battle round 3 plus, which implies that there will be reserves after turn 3. 6 inches of any table edge, but still not the enemy battlefield edge. So still not off the back enemy 6. Can't be within 9 of enemy models. You can't move, advance, or fall back the turn they come on. That's not new. You always count as having moved. Not new. And any not set up at the end of the battle counts as destroyed. We also got a little bit of clarification because they've teased in another article. I think it was the Guard article where they'd said that if you bring on things in reserve on your table edge, you can bring them closer than 6 or 9 to your opponent.
Right. It's 1 inch from the board edge, right? That what it was?
Yes. Actually, at the bottom of the article where they give us the strategic reserve things, you have to place, in order to break the minimum distance, you have to place within 1 inch of your table edge.
Right. So that's way harder than I was expecting in my mind.
Absolutely. And additionally, I mean, to be fair, if you have like a Lemon Rust, which only has like a 2.5 inch sideways silhouette, if you deploy your tank on your backfield, that still means if an enemy is in your grill, you have like a 3-inch charge out of reserve, which is definitely not hard to pull off. Like you can build an effective castle with those rules, but it's definitely not you're in my deployment zone, I'm going to bombard you with 30 spore mines and you're just going to die. Which is definitely something that I immediately was like, oh, wait, spore mines just got gross. Like, Games Workshop has thought of these things, or hopefully they've thought of these things.
Yeah, I mean, think about search and destroy. I mean, that's halfway up the table, as far as coming in from your board edge there. So, I mean, you could technically, anything that's even at that halfway mark is susceptible to being charged closer to 9 inches, potentially.
Yeah, and other things we saw besides the reserve rules that I think is going to be a big positive change for Tyranids and other armies. It is a nerf, technically, for a lot of units. You cannot shoot if you fall back with a unit with fly.
Right.
Fly has been a nerf.
Yeah, which everybody's like, take that, Tau, take that. And then Tau's like, yeah, but we can still Overwatch normally, so fuck you.
Yeah, I think the big thing with that though is that like even the shooting flying hive tyrant it's like, oh well, like if I can fly and shoot 24 shots, like that's just better if I can fall back. Like I have no reason to ever not invest in that gun platform. Yeah. I mean, you look at repulsors, you look at all the other grav tanks, Eldar tanks. It really, really was just too much of a face roll. Like, well, obviously I'm going to pick the one with fly.
Yeah.
So it's good to see them kind of level the playing field in that regard.
Yeah.
Um,
I've still really got my fingers crossed for some good transport rules too. We haven't got that yet, right? No good transport.
we haven't seen anything new in terms of transport rules. I don't know what specifically you're looking to change, George. As a Filthy Tyranid player, I don't use transports a lot.
I have one. There's been one like eureka in my mind that would make me happy, and I think would be a good rule change. And that is that I think that would be awesome. Is I really want to be able to fucking move with them and get out. And I just feel like it feels lame, not thematic, and not a And part of it feels like some of the changes they've been doing is kind of fixing these kind of things, and where it feels right, And I think what they could do is that you can get out if you move, but you have to be outside of 9 inches of an enemy. But if you didn't move, then you don't have to be outside of 9 inches of an enemy. Seems reasonable. It's not too bad. It's like, cool, I drive my Rhino up. Maybe not advance it. Like, maybe there'd be some different rules there or something. Like, risk of hurting yourself if it's, like, hauling ass. But if you do, like, a regular move, with a, like, let's say maybe even they, like, make it you only can move half the distance. Whatever they got to do to not break it. But just make it so you can move and get out of the thing. And if it just means that you got to be outside of 9 of the enemy, like, I'd be totally okay with that. I think it'd be cool still.
Yeah, I mean, Mike mentioned assault transports, which the front port of the Land Raider. You used to be able to do that. That used to actually be one of the main reasons to take Land Raiders.
Right.
Is
it had it
there were certain vehicles that had it. Like, that was an incentive. It made some vehicles better. In my head, I'm trying to grasp what you're saying and like think of all the bad situations of why I don't want that. But I mean, like, like if reserves count as already having moved, as what you're saying, I'm not immediately jumping at anything where I'm like, oh no, that can't work.
It's like,
so like I don't know.
Look at drop pods, It's like, and I'm not saying maybe it's like, okay, if the thing moved, because like right now, if it didn't move, you can just disembark within 3 inches and then move. So let's say, so if you were to, it should be just like a drop pod basically if it moved. So it maybe with some sort of rule that if it moves really fast, like in advance, that they could hurt themselves. But pretty much it hauls ass, and then they get out. And not that they could move again at that point, but just that they would have to stay outside of 9, and they would just disembark within 3. It seems no crazier than a bunch of drop pods landing in your face turn 1, basically.
Yeah.
So I'm like, it's like, and the more I play the drop pods and fail charges, or it works or it doesn't work, and it's just holding infantry and shit. Maybe there's more broken things than I can imagine too, but I would appreciate. And I would be more excited about transports if there was the ability to move and get out, Mike says, generally the transports that had assault cost more because of that premium rule. Yeah. I'd be down to spend command points to upgrade a transport,
Certainly. I mean, for the right price. I mean, those special rules, as long as it's not just a free rule because of it being a free rule, like, Imperial drop pods being able to deep strike turn 1 when Chaos ones can't do it or something, then who cares? Like,
if they make it so that you have to roll dice for every model in the unit, and on ones you lose guys if you get out while moving, then you would immediately be forced to want to take a tax of other units that are more, you don't care about as much. Which hopefully there's a lot less of those units with the new army construction. That is definitely the thing I'm most like. Putting me at a halt about caring about anything I'm doing with list design is that I need to fucking know. I want to utilize the new army construction so bad.
That was a big point, actually. I was talking with some of the guys in the Tennessee thread, is that, like, especially for Chaos players, people are really, really on edge to see the cost of these detachments because, like, a lot of Chaos lists live and die on a Supreme Command detachment. And if the Supreme Command detachment hypothetically costs 2 CP, but then it being a different faction makes it cost an extra CP, that one detachment with 3 HQ choices would cost you a steep 3 command points, which in a standard game, you're going to have, 12 CP? And so it's going to bump you down to 9.
But I mean, you're not paying for the battalions. You're saving 120. Minimum. You're paying 40 points for a squad of cultists usually. I think it's more than 30 for brimstones. It's 30 for demons, and then I think it's 40 for some cultists. So that's 120 points not counting the 2 HQs that are required as well, just to CP farm. So if they're saving 250, 300 points, that's going to cover the cost of the models increasing. Obviously, the thing that I think is funny, it keeps sticking in my head, is when GW is like, you're going to need troops just as much as you do now. But you're just not going to need them in the same way. We're not going to need them for the tax of getting CP. We're going to need them to OBSEC score. We're going to need them to screen. We're going to need them to sacrifice, things like that, I think.
Well, even, that's it's interesting you mentioned that because, even in the Tyranid article, for example, they mention the Tyranid expert they brought on had said, I'm so excited to be able to field an army of nothing but monstrous creatures and have it be viable and killy. But he himself said, while that's cool and you can do it, you're probably going to start eating some crap on the objective scoring game. That's just the reality. You might be able to kill stuff, but it is still an objective-based game. You will not necessarily profit if this is the strategy you're taking.
Yeah. Yeah, Mike mentions the fact that we get CP back at each turn, with one every turn. There's still some hidden, just the feel of that and what that's like. We're going to have to, it's going to feel odd to spend so much CP on stuff we didn't have to spend it on before, but then it's going to feel weird when we're getting free CP back throughout the game. And then who knows what kind of other tricks that are going to be around to, CP farm as well.
Yeah, I mean, Mike's a little biased because he plays Necrons, though, so they only had 3 CP. I'm coming from, GSC where it was 18 CP.
Yeah. Dude, playing with the fucking, the Demon Psychic Awakening, I don't remember if we were talking about that last week on the channel or not. I don't think so.
We touched on it.
Yeah, maybe I was, well, I tried it, and it was hard. And really, the thing I got super pissed on, and maybe we did talk about this last week, is how much better a Keeper of Secrets profile is over a fucking... Laughing at Mike. Damn you, Chris. Fuck your pretty eyes. Oh, man. Nice. Wow, that's creepy even. The Gene Stealer's coming out. Don't let him fool you. He will bite your face off. Yeah, exactly. Man, I can't wait to... Yeah, I'm excited to play games. I'm definitely angsty about wanting ninth, and apparently it's coming soon. Death Guard rules are dropping. Their codex is about to hit, right?
I mean, Death Guard, their rules are out, I think, because they came out this this past Saturday with the custodies. I don't know if they're out or we saw the full leak.
No, you're right. They're out. I haven't got to digest any of their new rules yet myself.
Dude, custodes are saucy.
Really?
Oh yeah, dude. Just the 3 big stratagems off the top of my head I can rattle that make them really, really nasty.
Mm-hmm.
They have the little biker dudes that their bolter mounted on a polearm, if it's in rapid fire range, does 6 shots. For 1 CP, they can double that, so it becomes 12 shots.
Well, yeah, bikes are always in rapid fire range.
Yeah. So now, they're just running around doing 12 shots off of 1 dude. Then they got transhuman physiology, but it's called something different.
Okay.
So that's obviously good. And the 3rd stratagem, I don't remember the wording specifics. I think only 2 or 3 of their units can use it. It's a 0 CP stratagem. And when that unit kills something, for the next full turn, any stratagem your opponent wants to use costs an extra CP.
Oh, no.
Exactly.
They've been loving that mechanic, because then they throw in some assassins, too, which also have that ability. And now they can double up on it. That's what Ryan from Those Ones Loyal was doing to me with his fucking Raven Guard plus assassin combo. When you double that up, it's gross. Makes you want to throw up.
Bonus stratagem. You'll like this one as someone who plays Chaos, aka another psychic army. 1 CP, they can deny a power on a 3-up.
Ooh, yeah, take that. Oh, you rolled an 11 to fuck you?
Yeah, it's just nope, you don't get to do that.
Yeah, Corn loves it.
Death Guard are also pretty spicy. There's one mechanic that a lot of people that are getting really wrong on the Death Guard for the Plague Burst Crawlers. There is a mechanic that a lot of people are reading incorrectly that The guns on the Plague Burst Crawler are, it's an aura of 7 inches, because, Nurgle likes 7,
Yeah.
where it's like +1 damage on their guns, but it's not the Plague Burst Crawlers within 7 inches, it's enemies you shoot at within 7 inches. So it is very limited use. I've seen a lot of players get very sad about that. But besides that, Plague Marines are really good. The flails have gotten really good. Mathematically speaking, Plague Marines right now can roll up against a knight with the right loadout and just wax a full knight with a big enough squad. They've gotten better. That doesn't mean they're the most cost-effective thing in the game by any stretch of the imagination.
Right.
They've gotten some cool relics and disciplines and stuff, but at the same time, welcome love. I think out of that publication, I would wager that the Golden Boys, our Custode brothers, are the most improved.
Yeah.
Um,
Man, I get so jealous when like again the Space Wolf Psychic Awakening was extremely satisfying. The Chaos Space Marines, like the Thousand Suns, were extremely satisfying. What else did Chaos Space Marines really get? A Psychic Awakening? What did we get there for them? Did they really? What did they get featured in mainly? I know the Thousand
they
Suns.
they got something.
There was some. Oh no, I remember. It was Faith and Fury, and and Ritual of the Damned. Faith and Fury was the psychic for the Chaos Space Marines, and then Ritual of the Damned was for Thousand Suns. Yeah, and then
that was forever ago.
Yeah, but those were some badass releases as far as me getting the rules and being super stoked. The goddamn demon rules, dude. They don't. It's called Psychic Awakening. We didn't even get any psychic powers. Come on. And then, dude, like, we got all these exalted traits, but we didn't get any warlord traits, and the warlord traits are literally like, I guess I'll pick this one, because And then on top of the good, on top of like, all right, so we don't have any of these things. Well, you gave us the exalted traits. Well, cool, let's use them. Let's run them. Maybe this is cool. No, you're going to have some restrictions, too. You can only take these cool exalted relics, cool with quotations. These, if you want these exalted relics, you have to have an exalted warlord of the same god. It's like, all right, thanks for putting me in that box, all right. And then
Can't double up on the same one.
Yeah, and then even though you're spending CP to get an exalted demon, and you can't take double, traits on one guy, you just get one exalted ability, or 2 if you roll. You're not able to, I discovered sadly, and was annoyed at the placement in the book. Like in the front header, they're like, you gain this stuff. But then when they break down the actual stratagem of exalting something, they don't tell you that if you choose an exalted trait, then every other demon you do has to be rolled for. So you can't choose the same thing twice. So where it would be super fun to be like, all right, all these Bloodthirsters I'm going to take a max of 8 damage on. Or I'm going to give all these Keepers the same like bonus movement. Well, you can't do that purposefully. You can only choose one guy and the rest have to roll. And that was just a little bit of piss in my cornflakes kind of thing as well. While already just being kind of like, this is hard. It may be that it's extremely 9th edition oriented, and I'm just going to be way surprised at how it plays. But I don't think so, dude. Just looking at how bad the Bloodthirster Greater Demon profile is comparatively to the Keeper's Secrets, I lost a lot of faith that GW has their eye on the ball about demons in 40K. And thus, hashtag demons are for AOS. And you got to have the R4. Demons are the letter R4. I'm going to put it in the chat, don't worry.
I think the lack of presence of James says everything. Games Workshop has forgotten about the Blood God.
Yeah.
They are no longer hungry for the blood, and they've decided that Necrons are their new masters and overlords, and have said we are moving on to more 1s and 0s rather than dealing with the chaos that is chaos.
Yeah, dude. Come on, man. And I swear to God that I have my conspiracy suspicions that it's because Age of Sigmar, they go so heavy-handed and like they have individual codexes for each Chaos God, and you have more than one way to play with the mortals and the demons, that they're invested in people playing demons in that game, and they almost want to they don't want they make less money and people get to double dip on the buy. And
You're right.
They got to make it so that the demon players that play in 40K are motivated to buy Chaos Space Marines, and they got to make the demon players in Age of Sigmar be motivated by the mortal side of the models. Because that's what I found, Chris, is that like you'll find in even Age of Sigmar is that the demons are better than they are in 40K, but they made the models that are Age of Sigmar exclusive, the mortals of the Chaos Gods, the whatever they call them. You've seen them, the fucking the Reapers and the Marauders and the Ravagers and all this shit. Whatever, all the troops and whatnot, the mortals, they're awesome. They have like all the great rules, but like I don't want to play mortals in Sigmar kind of thing. But they're so tricksy on how they push your buying patterns based on good rules. That's where some narrative players say they'll never buy an army based on their rules, you know?
Oh, man.
Oh, no. Oh, no. Oh, no. Mike, I didn't even remember that it was that bad. Chris, did you realize that? Oh, fuck, dude. I literally didn't. I didn't kill a single unit, Chris.
I heard a little bit about it. I haven't tuned in. I didn't catch that one, but I heard how ugly it was, and I got to be honest.
Bad. It was so bad. Here I am talking about, like, you know, I sound upset. Well, I did play 4 turns of letting Mike shoot me for fucking 4 turns and doing jack diddly nothing. And
with the Demons book, what I will say that I think I'm like mildly hopeful for, and I don't know how this is going to translate because we haven't seen any points hikes, we haven't seen a lot of that, but like with the Psychic Awakening for Demons, what we saw with a lot of the Slanesh stuff is that a lot of it affects leadership. And one of the things that we have seen in the last week is they teased a quote-unquote new leadership system. That's I don't think it's going to be the sauciest or biggest change to the game. At its core, it still works the same way that it does in 8th edition, which is, you know, if something dies, if a model dies in a unit, you take a leadership test. If you fail, you automatically lose 1 model. From there, now you have to start taking a battlefield attrition test. And what that is every surviving model in the unit rolls a dice. Any rolls of 1, a model, not a wound, a model is removed. And that's interesting because I definitely heard stuff that's elite. One thing that jumped out at me was stuff like grotesques. 4 wounds of feel no pain and invuln and nastiness.
Don't they have high leadership, fairly high leadership, or?
It's moderately high, but there are ways to negatively impact leadership. Yeah, and granted,
that's kind of like what you're saying is that it's way more motivating now to care about that because you could actually impose an elite army to take some pretty high suffering.
And I do believe, and I could be wrong because someone mentioned to me, I'm not sure if the modifier cap would affect that because, stacking multiple negative leadership modifiers may not do anything. However, Games Workshop has mentioned specifically in an article they teased that there will be mechanics that affect the attrition test specifically.
Oh, right.
One thing that I could see pretty easily is, maybe there'll be units that have like a 6-inch aura where it's like 1s and 2s cause a model to be slain. Like that's technically not a modifier. That's technically a new number on the dice unlocked. Chris, they like doing stuff like that.
Was it 7th or was it 6th? When did they have that part where you won combat? Like you actually counted how many models like lost in the fight?
There was that in 7th as well, but that is something that's existed in multiple editions. That existed to some effect in 5th. That existed to some effect, I think, in 4th.
I wouldn't mind that if that was a part of. I thought that was a fun mechanic. You win the fight and that modifies the +1, -1, whatever the fucking.
I mean, there literally used to be a mechanic called Sweeping Advance where if you won combat, you would roll initiatives and compare, and basically, if you won combat and your initiative plus your dice roll was higher, you just destroyed the enemy unit. That used to be a thing. So like it's difficult to say exactly where their mechanics are going in terms of their headspace. But I definitely welcome the change to morale. However, somebody did point out an interesting hypothetical to me that I think is hilarious, and I know as a Chaos player, maybe you're less entertained, but riddle me this. You have a group of 30 Chaos cultists, or 20, or whatever the max number is,
Okay.
and one dies, and you take a leadership test and you fail. You're now rolling 19 plus d6 dice, and for every one of those models will die.
Yeah, that seems worse, doesn't it? It seems more deadly.
It definitely means that for the low leadership squads, mechanics that affect stuff that, like synapse, fearless mechanics, they're going to be much more important. Because low casualties, I mean, right now, like low casualties don't do anything. Like, if you lose 4 models on a leadership 8 unit, you're probably fine.
Yeah, you lose a couple more. Like you fail leadership
If
5 or
any.
6. Yeah, you lose a couple maybe. Yeah, now it's like, nope, you could lose, a handful, basically more than you want to. You're losing one no matter what. We know that right out the gate.
I mean, like even mentioning, like they could go the direction of mechanics to affect attrition, like, oh, maybe 2s will count, or maybe every fail, like maybe within a certain range of certain models will count as 2 failures. You know what I mean? Like
Or
they
maybe
could take it.
lose more than half the squad. It could be a
Oh,
mechanic. Yeah.
that actually is part of the mechanic that I forgot to mention. If your squad is below half its starting strength, you get a -1 modifier to your rolls.
Yeah. See, there you go. There you go. There's one right
2s
there.
fail.
Yeah, there's
Yep.
one right there. That was right out of the old intuition. What about the old heavy cover? That apparently there's a -1 mechanic now. Not only do we have obstruction added to the game, but there's a -1 mechanic, heavy cover.
So now for terrain that is 3 inches or taller, if you cannot draw full line of sight to a single model in a unit, which means if you have a unit that is at least totally obscured by a piece of terrain 3 inches or more, you get a -1 to your hit rolls. So that's going to be much more prevalent. That means that in a lot of cases, what you're shooting at is going to have a -1 modifier. Now, granted, if you have one guy sticking out of a ruin and the enemy's unit can fire at that one guy sticking out of a ruin, you just gave away that -1 modifier. So, that makes terrain much more relevant this edition, because if you stupidly stick a model out of cover, guess what? You're going to get punished for it.
Yeah. I'm really interested to see more about the standard board layout, like the mix of terrain. In Age of Sigmar, they go pretty crazy with terrain features, Chris. There's literally, I think that there was an older 2d6 chart, and now there's a new 2d6 chart. So I think there's literally fucking 4d6, so 24 different terrain feature types, and you would roll for those types, and then the terrain would have some ability. So this is different than that, obviously, but I'm wondering how they're going to play that out to like create either a sense of, in competitive play, is it going to be a lot more cut and dry, or is kind of rolling that stuff out and randomizing it going to be a little bit more fair so everybody has a chance of having a certain piece of cover? I like, in Infinity, for instance, they make it really, it's very important. They value the choice of deployment zone being a tactical mechanic. And so they like boards to be different. They don't like both sides to be exactly the same, so that it makes the choice, because if you choose sides in that game, you usually go second, just like in the new ITC. So it makes choosing to go second more of a tactical decision based on the value of choosing your deployment zone. And if you were to say roll for these terrain features or randomize these terrain features amongst the different pieces on the board, it would start to add, even if the board was laid out in a cookie cutter format where the equal amount of 5-inch, 3-inch terrain pieces are spread across the board, whatever, L's in the middle, it would make a difference to which side is more important based on the terrain features that are randomized for it,
Yeah.
Some food for thought. I wonder how that kind of stuff's going to play out. I know just before we kicked off, just before the fucking quarantine and shit, we were getting ready to do 2020 IDC missions with randomized terrain based off the Adepticon 2019 packet. And just Adepticon format in general. I think they've traditionally placed terrain prior to the match, and I love it. I think it's a way more interesting, and I'm curious how that's going to groove with the new missions and the new smaller board and all that new addition.
So the terrain is an interesting topic for 40K because between editions, Games Workshop has had very different and unclear kind of rules on what the terrain expectation even is. When I first started playing, it literally said 25% of the board should be terrain. Like it suggested even like, hey, mark off a quarter of the board, fill it with terrain, and then scatter it across the board.
Yep.
This edition, we've seen a picture out of the rulebook they've teased during one of the early teases where for each points bracket, when they were saying actually the table sizes, what they feel like the expected kind of rough terrain layout is. And that only deals with the amount of terrain and kind of like the amount of different types of terrain. However, that they didn't establish anything concrete that we've seen yet. We don't know what the expectation is for types.
Yeah. And like height is a pretty relevant thing. They're making a lot of references to 3-inch, 5-inch height terrain pieces. So that'll be interesting. We're gonna folks will start defaulting some of their more narrative terrain pieces and be like, yeah, that one we're just gonna call it 3. We're just gonna call it 5. There's gonna be that in play. Plus we got like we were talking about the extra height with the engagement, being able to fight from multiple levels. So the height of terrain is going to start to be a pretty fundamental part of the game, it seems.
Especially since they say on all of these that you consider the height of a piece of terrain from the absolute highest point on the piece of terrain. So if you got a flag on that piece of terrain, congratulations. That's how tall the piece of terrain is.
Whoa. Yeah, it's going to really be a wild world with that stuff, man. I'm curious about it for sure. My mind was wandering there. Yeah, it's exciting. It's wild. It's crazy.
Yeah.
I'm excited for all of it. I'd like to be there. Yeah. What were you gonna say?
The only other change that we haven't discussed ad nauseum today, which you touched on towards the beginning, is we mentioned last week that there's the Overwatch change where Overwatch is a 1 CP stratagem. We've seen the correction on the for the greater good rule for the forces of the Tau Empire is 8th edition Overwatch.
Yeah. But they don't have Fly anymore to save their ass from getting tagged, though.
Correct.
But
Riptide.
they can shoot in combat, though. Those bastards. Fucking Tau.
Now, my big question becomes, can they shoot in combat in the fight phase? Because if it still works that they can only shoot in their shooting phase, that means they still have to survive the combat in order to get to use the guns on their turn.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Which is kind of my expectation. Because, otherwise, why even give them a close combat profile if they can just use their guns?
Yeah. Oh, yeah, I still think that they have to shoot in the shooting phase.
What I'm feeling.
Right, but then they'd have to fall back and they wouldn't be able to shoot, right? Or they'd have to either stay in combat, shoot you, and hope to kill you.
Yes.
Or they don't kill you and you end up fighting them in the fight phase again because they stayed in combat to shoot you.
Exactly.
Yeah, I dig that. I can dig it.
Yeah. And I mean, that I think that for the most part covers, like the 9th edition teases we've seen thus far for the week.
Yeah.
We have also seen them, this coming weekend we have the last Psychic Awakening book going up for pre-order.
Which one's that?
Is it Pariah, I think?
Oh, that's the Necron one.
It's the Necron one. There is very little mention of Necron rules in the index picture we saw of that, as Mr. Vandesky pointed out. So I think there's a lot of question over how soon the edition comes out after this book, because it could be very, very soon.
Yeah. And we don't know. I remember what my mind was thinking about. 2 things. One, we don't know about Forge World.
Yep.
And like how inclusive that's going to be, or when the hell do we get the update to that, and is that going to be a part of the 9th edition release, and, you know, closely followed, or a separate like indexy Forge World thing? Are they going to build it into codexes, or make it surely they're going to make it its own kind of book structure like they always have. And then my other thought was, when 9th edition drops, I feel like, you know, with the Mike Brandt Nova thing and the Frontline Gaming playtester thing, and how involved those guys are, that especially with them like firmly taking the stance early on that they will be taking the 9th edition missions into the ITC format. So particularly setting the pace when it comes to LVO. You know, LVO 2021, are they going to be playing the rule book missions that are straight out of the 9th edition book? And how fast are they going to, are the 2020 ITC missions just going to be like, all right, that's optional, friends, but this is the way we play at all the major events now. So if you're playing the 2020 ITC packet, you're playing the old way of history, but that's not, you know, it's like playing 7th nowadays or whatever. Like, how quickly are the moment that they say that they're doing them at LVO, they're practically irrelevant, the 2020 ITC missions.
And I mean, you know, every single edition change, there's always a crowd, especially on the internet, that's like, well, like, I'm just going to play the old edition. I'm just going to play this because I like this. But you know what? Go ahead and be a dinosaur. The world will move on without you. Like, I mean, no offense, but like, that's just the truth, you know?
Yeah, I'm still blown away when I see the fantasy diehards that push around the movement trays of the line squads there, because those guys are super thin crowd. Like there's like 2 of them, you know.
I mean, they're gonna die on that hill, but you know what? At least they've got like one friend on that hill with them.
Fuck Sigmar, fantasy. Yeah, it's hard. But yeah, I think the 9th edition is going to be badass, and I wonder if we're going to see an explosion like we did with 8th edition, because 40K went to its largest peak maybe in history, would you say, as far as popularity level and mainstreamness?
Yeah, I would say so. I mean, you know, like one of the things that we're seeing, I think, both from like the PR standpoint of Games Workshop and just like from marketing, like, you know, like Games Workshop is not going to make money courting the same customers over and over and over and over again. Like the people that have 30,000 points of Tyranids are not going to buy another 30,000 points of Tyranids.
Right.
You know, like the more accessible they can make this game, the better it is for them. And I think that in a lot of ways makes for a healthier, better rounded edition.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you know, it's impossible to make a perfect game. In my opinion. But I think you can improve it. And I think what I've seen so far, I mean, 2 of the biggest things that I complained about in 8th edition that I've gone on multiple rants on was the fly rule and the character rule. Yep. And so far, I've seen those changed, and that's pretty exciting.
Yeah, and I'm loving the tactical reserves and the depth that's involved. I think that's really cool too. I think they're doing a great job. They're doing a great job. Things seem really exciting. If you're naysaying 9th edition, I really don't know why, you know.
Poo-poo on you, sir.
Yeah, pretty
Poo-poo
much.
on you if you're naysaying the 9th.
Come on now.
I did see something cool today before we wrap up and get out of here. With the Parietes, we saw 2 new models coming out. One of them is a Harlequin, and one of them is a Sister of Battle model. Ephemeral Stern, I think, is the Sister of Battle's name, and I don't know what the Harlequin character's name is. I don't know. Harlequin players, you will be happy to know there's so many happy Harlequin players in that Games Workshop chat. It is not for your army. It is actually for the Imperium. It is basically the Sister of Battle's pet. You don't get a new Harlequin. You don't get a new character. It is the only named Harlequin character, and it is not for your army.
What the fuck? That's whack. It's like the Karn, but like not for this, like for demons instead.
Exactly. While we're salting that wound, you're a Chaos player, George. So Ephemeral Stern has a really cool rule called something like Demonifuge or something, based off of the novel series or the comic series that she's out of. It's a very powerful rule. You check 18 inches off of this character and roll 2d6. If you roll a 5 or higher, the closest model or the closest unit within 18 takes D3 mortals.
Okay.
If you roll a 7 or higher, make that D6 mortals.
Ooh.
And if the closest unit if any chaos units are within 18 inches, add 2 to that roll.
What the fuck? That's asshole. Dang. So you can end up doing 8 mortals.
Well, you can do D6. You add 2 to the 2D6 roll. So that means that,
okay, yeah.
And you only need to roll a 7 to do D6.
Yeah,
so keep in mind,
come on.
you got to roll a 5 on 2D6 to be dealing D6 mortals.
Dude,
That's just a constant.
A pet Harlequin is hilarious. That's so fucked up.
It's they're friends technically, but it's basically her pet.
Nice.
So that's the thing.
Take that, Connor. Eat some ass, Connor. Knife ears. Take that.
9th edition.
Yeah.
Eat ass.
Take that out, boy. All right. With that, I think it's time to get the hell out of here. It's been a good time. Chris and I had fun, I think. Yeah, Chris? Hell yeah, fuck.
Damn right.
Damn straight. We didn't get a lot of folks tuning in, but maybe they'll catch us on the back end, Chris. This is episode 107. I might share this around and say, this is a good episode. We talked about stuff. There's stuff happening. Battlegrounds coming back around. Can't wait for July 1st.
Go to Battlegrounds on July 1st. Wear a face mask. Enjoy. Get some game in.
That's right.
Do your thing.
Buy some shit. Keep taking fun seriously, and we'll catch